You know, Richie, do you want to read that piece for the Theater for the New City? Richie Rich is representing Theater for the New City here.
Yeah, Taylor also worked with John Cassavetes, and there's a lost film of his where he plays Buster Keaton. Maybe it wasn't a good performance.
With Donald Sutherland.
Oh yeah, that's right. You told me that.
Oscar's best film.
Yes. Now, I got the report from the Bette Beatnik Bureau, building Bette Beatnik Street centuries now, for the drama bums here with the theater thing. And in 1990, Taylor Mead did some shows for Theater for New City, which I had the honor to host. Anyway, they asked me to write an obit for him, and this is it. Taylor Meads are not tailor-made, I would kid Taylor, because he didn't fit the Midwestern mold. A young gay free-spirited fugitive from a wealthy Republican family, he was the black sheep. Taylor was born in Grosse Pointe, Michigan on December 31st, 1924. He attended a high-end private high school, which he referred to as brainwashing for the bourgeoisie. He began drifting from coast to coast, taking leave, leaving many jobs, including a stockbroker at Merrill Lynch. He was soon socially and financially disinherited from his family for his wayward ways. Meanwhile, he studied acting at the Pasadena Playhouse in LA, as well as the Herbert Berghoff Studio, HP Studio, here in New York, which is now on Bank Street. Ironically, though, San Francisco beat poetry scene in 1956 is where he launched his career as a beat comic character. And he ended his career in a neo-beat poetry reading here, too. In 1960, he was cast as one of the first underground films stars by Ron Rice, an early experimental filmmaker, of what would be called the New American Cinema. The film, The Flower Thief, a young ragtag Taylor walks through San Francisco's beat North Beach as an impressionable simpleton and open-mouthed wonder with his teddy bear American flag and stolen gardenia. Taylor went on to work with John Cassavetes and Buster Keaton. And it was Andy Warhol who made the man famous, who brought a measure of fame. Andy attended the New York beat poetry readings in the late 50s also. He saw Taylor perform. And in the early 60s, they met on the poetry scene. And Andy cast him in his first film in 1964, Tarzan and Jane Regain, sort of. Then he began to play a series of comic anti-heroes, usually cast with the vivacious Viva superstar, and their spontaneous comic intelligence combined perfectly. And Andy usually let the actors make it up themselves, direct themselves, and Taylor did the editing. However, Warhol got most of the credit and profit with his brand name, which guaranteed a wider distribution. Andy provided a 16mm camera and a very minimal budget. Minimal is the operative word, for Warhol was also known for being notoriously cheap, shortchanging his actors. And the only ones who made money besides himself was his business associates. Taylor was once stranded in Spain, bereft of money, and Andy wouldn't send him the measly $100 he owed him. Andy's rationale is that he opened the door to all these drag queens and social outcasts, and he kept an open tab for them in the big back room of Mickey Rourke's Max's Kansas City, where Warhol luxuriated, holding court to all the celebrities and their consorts, in an informal setting. This was a much-needed meeting ground, a refuge to some and an opportunity to others. In 1992, I wrote a satirical play called Warhol in Hell at Theater for New City, and Taylor told me I was one of the few people on the art scene who got Andy, because Andy was revered somewhat as a saintly status to them, and I was castigated for my literary transgression to Warhol adepts. Fortunately for Taylor, his career did not rest with Andy, because he won an Obie in '63, as we said, for the great poet Frank O'Hara's play, The General Returns from One Place to Another. That was the size of it, actually. He was going from one place to another. And I saw that play, and I know those things from the past, and I'll tell you, Taylor might have been okay in that, but he was much, much better when he was younger, because he had more energy, and he was kind of devastated, I thought then. By the 1980s, Taylor could be seen carrying through with Alan Midget. He was the guy who used to imitate Andy Warhol, and Andy would send Alan to the university like Kansas or someplace like that to pick up his diploma because he wouldn't want to go. And he, of course, Warhol never said anything. You know, no, she had Alan, no, and stuff like that. And he just did that, and he got the money. Anyway, they did this skit called the Warhol Brothers, and then after that he had white hair, and Andy, they were doing all kind of funny put-downs and things like that with each other. Anyway, so he came every year to the Lower East Side Festival, which is going to happen in 2 weeks, interfacing with his cassette radio. In 2005, the Tribeca Film Festival launched a documentary entitled Excavating Taylor Mead, directed by William Perkley. Shortly after, he appeared in a series of play vignettes, including Michael McClure's Gargoyle cartoons as Peter Rabbit, Spider Rabbit. He made another short scene reunited with Bill Rice, his first collaborator, in a film called Coffee and Cigarettes.
Yeah.
Jim Jimish. Time was taking its toll on Taylor, and once this prodigious walker through the village streets was now withering away at the age of 88, and he was trapped in his final years in a tiny room on the 5th floor walk up on Ludlow Street on the Lower East Side. Fortunately, the Bowery Poetry Club was close, and he ended his career here as a refuge, and for his beat poetry as it began. His persona was a simple country girl, which was the last of his many books. In the last days, he was faced with eviction by the landlord and took a buyout for his $300 apartment and used the money to get to Denver. I didn't know he got more than that, but anyhow, we all thought he was really destitute. Colorado, he was received by his niece over here, an angel, who redeemed the family name, who ostracized him. I always remember him from telling me when I had my sexual cycle plays that they were lots of fun, but he said, "The trouble with you is you're still trying to get famous, but I stopped trying long ago." Richard West.